Chapter 1681. He didn't seem to think that it was beneath him to do such a thing. Yu Qingyun didn't think so. In fact, in his eyes, he only cared about what Gu Shengyin thought. He didn't care what other people thought. Yu Qingyue didn't expect her brother to do this. After all, Yu Qingyun didn't say anything. She thought that they were here to congratulate Gu Shengyin on her birthday. But then again, it made sense. With her brother's perverted possessiveness, how could he bear to wait until Bai Yi was an adult and regained her identity as a girl? Even if he couldn't take her, he would at least mark her as his own so that no one could covet her. It had to be said that Yu Qingyue knew her brother well. Everyone, including Yu Qingyun and Yu Qingyue, was waiting to see how Gu Shengyin would react. Mo Zhongliang and Gu Shengyin's grandparents didn't say anything. Over the past year, they had all heard about Gu Shengyin and Yu Qingyun. They had objected to it before, but now they could only say that their children and grandchildren would have their own blessings. As an adult, Bai Yan had the right to make decisions for her own future. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Gu Shengyin finally moved. She slowly reached out her hand and gently placed it on top of Yu Qingyun's raised hand. Okay. Yu Qingyun was overjoyed. Almost immediately, he put the ring on Gu Shengyin's finger. Then, he got up and hugged Gu Shengyin tightly in his arms. This was what he wanted to do from the moment he entered the room. The people around them applauded as if to congratulate the young couple. After a long while, Mo Zhongliang had no choice but to step forward. He cleared his throat and interrupted the couple's embrace. Mo Zhongliang felt very helpless in his heart. Today was clearly his daughter's birthday party, not their engagement party. Why did he feel that there was something wrong with the primary and secondary arrangement? But no matter what Mo Zhongliang thought, he had achieved the goal of this birthday party. After that night, the entire business world of Chuannan City knew that the mysterious eldest young master of the Mo group was not the eldest young master but the eldest young mistress. The most amazing thing was that on the night that the young mistress regained her identity as a daughter, she received a marriage proposal from the crown prince of the Yu family. People paid more attention to the latter than the former. After all, the Yu clan was much more powerful than the Mo clan and had conflicts of interest with many other clans. Yu Qingyun was also very satisfied with this. Because from now on, he could openly hug her, kiss her, and be jealous when other men tried to get close to her. No one else was more qualified than him as her fiancé, wasn't it? Gu Shengyin's birthday party was held during the summer vacation. A month later, she entered a new school to study. The seniors of University S expressed their heartache. This was because the quality of this batch of juniors was very high, especially in the finance department. It was said that there was a new junior whose looks could kill the female celebrities in the entertainment industry. That junior had only been at University S for a short period of a month, but she had successfully defeated all the seniors and competitors in the same batch and successfully ascended to the throne of the campus belle. However, before the seniors could put on a handsome pose and prepare to have a romantic encounter with the junior, a thunderous piece of news came out of the blue. This new campus belle already had a boyfriend. No, to be precise, she had a fiancé. Chapter 1682. Gu Shengyin helplessly looked at Yu Qingyun, who was holding her hand. In just a month, the entire school knew that she had a fiancé. Everyone who knew her name, Gu Shengyin, knew that she had a fiancé. If one were to say that Yu Qingyun had no part in this, she would not believe a single word. Noticing Gu Shengyin's gaze, Yu Qingyun smiled. He knew what she was thinking. "You're not happy?" Gu Shengyin shook her head. She wasn't unhappy. After all, after Yu Qingyun did this, her side became much quieter. But, you don't have to be like this. She helplessly looked at him. Yu Qingyun turned around and hugged her. He put his chin on her head and gently sniffed the refreshing fragrance of her hair. At this time, the two of them were by a small flower bed in the school. The environment here was quiet. Although there weren't many people, there would still be people passing by occasionally. But in the university, it wasn't rare for young couples to hug, so the students would at most take a quick glance and sigh at the appearance of the two protagonists. Yu Qingyue softly sighed in her ear. I know, but I just can't wait to let everyone know that you're mine. In that case, those brats wouldn't keep having ideas about his people. She didn't know how angry he was when he first came to this school to look for her and saw those youthful boys looking at her with infatuated and passionate gazes. Oh, and fear. He was angry because someone else coveted what belonged to him. And fear because he felt the gap between the two of them. For example, age. He was about to enter his 30s. She was indeed young. In the school, she would constantly meet outstanding boys of the same age. The young master of the Yu family, who had always had a card up his sleeve, had a rare look of worry. It wasn't that he wasn't confident in the relationship between the two of them, but that he wasn't confident in himself. Yu Qingyun shook his head and bitterly smiled. He never knew that one day, he would use the word lack of confidence on himself. He cared too much, so he worried about gains and losses. Suddenly, he felt a warmth in his palm. It was Gu Xingyi's hand that was holding his. Then, the other party's fingers twirled and interlocked with his. He couldn't help but use some strength to hold her hand firmly in his palm. His body was cold, so every time Gu Xingyi had physical contact with him, he would feel extremely warm and satisfied. Qingyun, you shouldn't be like this. Gu Xingyi lifted her head from his embrace. She looked straight at Yu Qingyun. You should believe in me, and believe in yourself. Gu Xingyi tilted her head. Let me ask you, if one day you find out that I've changed, that I'm not as good-looking as I am now, or that my personality has become violent, will you stop liking me and leave me? Yu Qingyun shook her head. No, I will never leave you. He didn't know why he would say such a thing. But it was this kind of words that seemed natural, as if it was the right thing to do. Loving her had become an indelible part of his life. Then I'm the same, Gu Xingyi said softly. Yu Qingyun's heart trembled. Gu Xingyi just continued, I'm the same as you, Qingyun. No matter what you become in the future, what will happen between you and me? She used her other hand to cover her heart. Here, the original intention of loving you will never change. Ka Wenji finally released the last 2 chapters. These were the 2 chapters that hadn't been updated on the 18th. On the 19th, it would be updated as usual, but it might be a little late. God, I'm so sleepy. I'm going to sleep. Everyone, please vote after you've finished reading it. Rest early. Good night. //3/ Chapter 1683. Yu Qingyun's Adam's apple moved. He called Gu Xingyi's name, Beiyan. But he didn't know what to say. Gu Xingyi patiently allowed him to hug her. It was not until a long time later that Yu Qingyun spoke again. Beiyan, let's get married after you graduate, okay? Okay. 4 years passed very quickly for many people, but for others, it was very slow. To Yu Qingyun, this was undoubtedly an extremely difficult period of time. He had made all the preparations in the past 4 years, and he was only waiting for his bride to fall into his arms. Yu Qingyue dressed herself up and looked at Gu Xingyi beside her. She said sincerely, Beiyan, you're so beautiful. Yu Qingyue felt that Gu Xingyi was finally going to marry her brother. This day had finally come. She was the bridesmaid of the bride. Her brother was afraid that the bride would be nervous, so he specially asked her, a good friend, to accompany her. Yu Qingyue had long been used to her brother's behavior of having a wife but not a sister. Fortunately, it was Beiyan. Otherwise, she wouldn't have bothered. Looking at Gu Xingyi, who was dressed up and sitting on the sofa, Yu Qingyue opened her eyes wide and exclaimed, You're really beautiful today. There was no one in the room at this time. Yu Qingyue leaned in front of Gu Xingyi and whispered with a smile, My brother has been holding back for so many years. I'm afraid you're going to charm him to death today. Gu Xingyi glanced at Yu Qingyue calmly and didn't say anything. This girl had always been trying to make fun of her and her brother. Most of the time, she was slapped in the face by the two of them. Seeing that today was a joyous wedding day, Gu Xingyi decided to let her go and not argue with her. Yu Qingyun was wearing a well-ironed suit and holding a bouquet of flowers in his hand. He stood there quietly, waiting for the person who was about to hold his hand for the rest of his life. Some female guests were standing by the side and watching the scene. When they saw his handsome face, they blushed and whispered to each other. These years, rumors about the crown prince of the Yu family and his fiancée had been circulating in the upper class of Chuannan City. Everyone knew that the crown prince of the Yu family treated his fiancée like the apple of his eye. Such a handsome, strong, and affectionate man was the most attractive to women no matter the time. "The bride is here," someone shouted. Yu Qingyun turned around and looked at the person she cared about in her heart. Her father was holding her hand and walking towards her. Mo's feelings were complicated at this moment. His daughter, the pearl in his palm, from today onwards, he would personally hand her over to another person. From then on, there would be another man who would replace him as her father and become the most intimate and important person in her life. To dote on her, pamper her, protect her, let her live and to live to Su Qingyun knew that his father-in-law's feelings were probably complicated at this moment. He just held Gu Shengyin's hand tightly and promised her father, "Don't worry, Dad. I'll protect Bayan Zes for the rest of her life. I'll let her be safe and happy and be the happiest woman." Yu Qingyun held his wife's hand and the two of them walked to the end of the red carpet. His grip was firm, and his step was steady. Their lives in the future would be just like this path, steady and smooth. They would keep walking. Chapter 1684. Gu Shengyin returned to the pure white space. This place was no longer the pure white space. She used her power to create a house, land, and spring here. It was like a new world. There was even a small green figure flying between the spring and the forest. It was the little kingfisher. Seeing Gu Shengyin open her eyes, the little kingfisher seemed to be very happy as it flew towards her. Gu Shengyin spread out her hands, allowing the little kingfisher to rest on her palms. It even stretched out its small red beak and pecked her twice. Gu Shengyin could not help but laugh. "I don't have anything you want to eat here." After sending the little kingfisher away, Gu Shengyin said to the system, "Let's go to the next mission world." The system was surprised. "Host, you don't want to try?" Gu Shengyin shook her head. "I still have self-awareness. With the power I have now, I can only walk a short distance in the space crack and save my life. It is easier said than done to truly transcend it." The system was silent. It just did not think that the host would be able to analyze this point so calmly. Regarding the space crack, the system knew a lot more than the host. It also knew that with the host's current power, there was still a long way to go. Begin the transfer to the next world. Yes, host. Gu Shengyin was now very used to the dizziness she felt when she was transferred to another world. She calmly opened her eyes. When she saw the situation in the room, she was stunned. This was a very large and bright room. She saw that her room was densely packed with things. There were ordinary animals, strange creatures, and even a few people. What is this situation? Beginning the transmission of the plot. The system's voice rang out. Gu Shengyin closed her eyes and felt the information transmitted by the system. When she opened her eyes again, there was a trace of curiosity in her eyes. She slowly stood up. At this time, she realized that she was wearing a large black cloak. The hem of the cloak even extended to the ground. Gu Shengyin walked up to the animals and reached out her hand. It was cold and hard to the touch. These things were not living creatures at all. According to the plot transmitted by the system just now, Gu Shengyin knew that the original owner, Dean, was a puppet master. In modern society, there were very few puppeteers. At the very least, Diane had never seen one before. Dean didn't know about her family. She was adopted by her master, who was also a puppet master. She was raised and taught her the art of puppetry. Then, when she was 12 years old, that gloomy old lady lost her life. Diane had been living in this desolate mountain. The puppets in her hands would capture prey for her and maintain her vitality. There would also be some people who would come to visit her and ask her to do something for them. They would also pay her a generous sum of money. Diane, who didn't have any concept of good and evil, did things based on her heart. She had saved people and taken people's lives. In the eyes of the small group of people who knew about her, she was an extremely eccentric person. Diane didn't know what kind of ability she had, but after Gu Shangyin sensed it, she gasped. This body, according to the cultivation world saying, was a Een girl born in the Een year, Een month, Een day, Een hour. This kind of body was the easiest to condense the power of extreme Een and cultivate some evil techniques. She could also achieve unimaginable achievements. Chapter 1685. The so-called puppet technique that she practiced was to use special materials to refine puppets that she wanted. Then, she would use spells or other mediums to control these puppets for her own use. Because of her physique, most of the puppets that she refined carried Een energy. In the human world, it was an extremely ominous thing. Moreover, if Een energy was condensed endlessly, it would be possible for it to condense its own consciousness in the right time and place. Of course, such a situation was so rare that it was almost negligible. But coincidentally, there was such a puppet beside Gu Shangyin that had condensed Een energy. It was her mount, White Tiger. White Tiger was her early creation. At that time, her master was still alive and gave her some ancient books to read every day. She happened to see the legendary White Tiger that suppressed evil energy. It was funny when she thought about it. The puppet formed by the Een energy was actually called White Tiger. But no matter how strange it was, she had such a puppet that had developed its own consciousness. White Tiger was fierce by nature, but it had a natural closeness to its master. It was almost the only companion that Een could pass the time with. Back to the plot. The female supporting character in this world was called Chan Chi-Chi. She came from a very powerful family. Chan Chi-Chi was the second daughter of that family, but she was a very ambitious person. She had an older brother. According to the family rules, the first successor of the family in the future was her brother, not her. Naturally, Chan Chi-Chi was not satisfied. She heard about Di Yin's existence from somewhere and came to see her in person with a big gift. What she asked Di Yin to do was to create a puppet that could absorb people's vitality. Then, slowly and defenselessly, she would let her brother die. Di Yin rejected her. The reason for the rejection was not that Di Yin felt that this matter was not good, but that Di Yin did not like the arrogant tone in her words. Chen Chi-Chi obviously did not expect that Di Yin would reject her. She continued to pester endlessly. In the end, she was driven out by Di Yin in a very embarrassing manner. Di Yin had always done things according to her own wishes. She would not look at other people's faces, nor would she care about other people's feelings. Because of this, Chan Chi-Chi harbored hatred in her heart. Later on, Chan Chi-Chi found an evil sorcerer. It was said that he was a tame head sorcerer from Thailand and Malaysia. Her elder brother had fallen down inexplicably when he woke up early in the morning and became a vegetable since then. Chan Chi-Chi, who had successfully become the successor of the family, began to deal with those who had offended her. The first to bear the brunt was Dean. At first, she wanted to kidnap Dean, but Dean's puppets were not to be trifled with. After suffering countless losses, Chen Chi-Chi decided to go all the way. She found a group of people and burned down the entire forest where Dian was located in the dead of night. Dian died in the fire that lasted for 10 days and 10 nights. She could have left, but she couldn't bring her puppets with her. Dian never cared about the thoughts of humans, but the puppets she created were her family. Since she couldn't protect them, she might as well accompany them. Life and death were not that important to Dian. Gu Shengyin quietly finished reading the plot and fell into silence. Strictly speaking, a person like Dian was not a bad person. She had never harbored malice toward anyone, but others were not willing to let her go. It was midnight. In this world, the puppets were the male leads. They were not very scary and bloody, nor were they too perverted. They couldn't even drive. Recently, the situation had been very tense. Everyone knew that there was going to be a big movement on the website. Gao Lengji didn't want to drink tea at all. See you tonight. Oh, I almost forgot to ask for votes. It's the last day of the week. If you have a recommendation ticket or monthly ticket, remember to vote for Gao Lingji. Chapter 1686. Looking back at the time, Gu Shengyin found that Dean had already rejected Chen Qiqi at this time. In other words, the seeds of conflict between the two sides had been planted. Chen Qiqi was a narrow-minded and vengeful person. Gu Shengyin would never think of turning hostility into friendship with her. Thinking about it carefully, this period of time happened to be when Chen Qiqi found the foreign witch doctor to perform the black magic on her brother. She didn't know if it was successful or not. Chen Qiqi would not let her go. Gu Shengyin thought at this moment that she had to take some precautions in advance. She looked at the room full of puppets in front of her. These things were not as horrible as Gu Shengyin had imagined before. On the contrary, they were lifelike. Even the small animals looked a little cute. Gu Shengyin looked at the doll that had not been fully formed in her hand. Among all the puppets that looked like human children were the most powerful. They were also the puppets that looked like dolls. Whether they were used to pray for blessings or curses, Gu Shengyin didn't know the origin of this point. However, it was written in the secret book that she had been practicing, and her master had always taught her this way. Gu Shengyin looked at the doll in her hand. Its facial features had been formed, and half of its body had been formed. Obviously, Dean hadn't finished the rest of the work. At present, it was only the first step. Generally, the appearance of a puppet was the most basic. After the appearance was done, the puppet master still needed to draw charms on the body of the doll. If the puppet master wanted a better effect, he could even take a drop of his own blood and drip it on the puppet. This could make the puppet master and the puppet closer. The powerful puppet master could even connect his mind with the puppet and control the puppet with his consciousness. This doll was originally made by Dean as a housekeeper at the request of a person. However, Gu Shengyin didn't want to give it to that person now, because that person was a very cunning and sinister real estate developer who had even killed several people. Dean did not care about these things, but Gu Shengyin did not like such people. Seeing that it was getting late, Gu Shengyin put down the half-finished product in her hand and planned to go out for lunch. After she walked out, she realized what kind of place she was in. This was a valley surrounded by mountains on three sides. There was only one exit leading to the outside world. The house Gu Shengyin lived in was a wooden house with simple decorations. On the other hand, the puppet house she was in was different. Dian had spent a lot of effort to build that house. He used some special materials to ensure that there would be sufficient brightness regardless of day or night for her to refine puppets. System, skill extraction, Gu Shengyin said to the system as he walked. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You have obtained the blood breed talent skill, bloodline power. Gu Shengyin was puzzled. Does this mean that I can obtain the power of the blood race? The system replied, no. Gu Shengyin was puzzled. Then what does it mean? The system explained, this so-called talent skill means that the host's bloodline now contains the host's own power. And the blood that contains the bloodline power will have a greater effect in some aspects. For example? Gu Shengyin asked. The system gave an example. For example, in this mission world, if the host adds his own blood to the puppet, there might be an unexpected surprise. Chapter 1687. Gu Shengyin roughly understood what the system meant. So, this skill can make my blood valuable? She didn't know whether she should complain or not. Forget it, let's find something to eat first. Thankfully, although Dean lived alone in the mountains and forests like an ancient human, the house still had modern facilities. Gu Shengyin was quite satisfied with this. She walked out of the door and a black light flashed on her body. A huge white tiger appeared beside her. This was the white tiger that had developed self-awareness. The white tiger's situation was due to the excessive amount of yin energy in its body, which gave rise to power and self-awareness. In other words, it could be said that the yin energy had become a spirit, and this white tiger puppet's body could only be regarded as a carrier. Therefore, this white tiger already had the preliminary ability to become a spirit, such as freely changing its size. When there was nothing to do, the white tiger liked to become small and hide in Dean's pocket or sleeve. Even if those who did not know the reason saw it, they would at most think that it was a lifelike figurine. At this time, the white tiger whimpered and rubbed its big head against Gu Shengyin's robe. Its intention was obvious. It wanted Gu Shengyin to climb onto its body. Gu Shengyin reached out and patted the white tiger's big head. She refused. "I don't feel like moving today. White tiger, can you go and find me something to eat?" The white tiger probably had the IQ of a 7 or 8-year-old human child. It could understand Gu Shengyin's words, but it had not cultivated to the level where it could speak human language. Hearing Gu Shengyin's words, the white tiger whimpered twice in a low voice. Then, like a gust of wind, it ran into the dense forest not far away. Gu Shengyin was not too worried about White Tiger's safety. As a puppet, White Tiger's combat power was stronger than that of an ordinary tiger. At the very least, its fur was almost invulnerable. No wild beast in the entire forest could bite through it. Seeing a small river not far away, Gu Shengyin walked towards it. In the reflection in the water, Gu Shengyin saw the appearance of this body for the first time. White, pale, extremely white. The young girl in the water shadow seemed to have no color on her face. Her skin color was extremely abnormal. However, her lips were a thick purplish color. It wasn't because of her rosy lips. It was as if she had a serious illness. There was no emotion in her deep eyes, as if she was a beauty made of porcelain. In Gu Shengyin's words, if a normal person saw Dean's appearance, they would probably think of two things. Firstly, this girl had an extremely serious and incurable disease, and it seemed like she would soon die. Secondly, he was an avid fan of medieval Gothic style, or rather, a cosplay enthusiast. Especially with the dark robe on Gu Shengyin's body, she looked like a dark witch. However, this appearance, in the eyes of normal people, was extremely tempting. She was like a poppy in the dark. Everyone knew that she was dangerous, but there was no way to stop themselves from being attracted to her and falling for her. Even from a woman's point of view, Gu Shengyin admitted that Dean's appearance did have an extremely evil and fallen beauty. It was very tempting. This was not only because of her appearance, but more because of her identity as a woman of Een Hour. A woman of Een Hour was a great tonic for any man. Chapter 1688. Gu Shengyin stretched out her hands. Her hands were as white as jade, full of luster and beauty, but they did not carry the aura of a living person. On her slender fingertips were long purple nails. These nails were very beautiful. If they were discovered by nail art enthusiasts, they would probably excitedly ask which shop could make such a good result. However, Gu Shengyin knew that these nails were not only beautiful, but also dangerous. She gently raised her hand and pinched the branch of a big tree that hung down next to her. She curled her index finger and gently scratched the leaf. The full green leaf quickly withered and turned yellow at a speed visible to the naked eye. In an instant, it lost all its vitality. Gu Shengyin let go of her hand and looked at her fingernails again. The Een energy lingering around her could turn any part of her body into a deadly weapon. Fortunately, these unpredictable forces could be controlled by her, so Gu Shengyin did not have to worry too much. White Tiger came back quickly. The prey it brought back today was a kid. When the prey came to Gu Shengyin, it was already dead. Gu Shengyin looked at the food and thought carefully. Diane could only cook 2 dishes, roast and boil. And her cooking skills were not good. According to the memory Gu Shengyin received, saying that her cooking skills were not good was actually a compliment. Diane's cooking skills could be said to be terrible. Fortunately, the puppets did not need to eat, and Diane herself was not particular about the taste of food at all. She only needed to fill her stomach. Gu Shengyin did not want to treat her taste buds badly. Lin Sanjiu cut off 2 lamb legs with a knife, washed and skinned them. After everything was done, she went to the house to find some seasonings that Diane had never used before. One of Diane's previous clients had specially contracted for all her daily necessities. Unfortunately, Diane could not use it at all. Gu Shengyin looked at it. Well, fortunately, it did not expire. She made a fire, grilled the lamb legs, and slowly brushed honey and various seasonings on them. She began to think about the mission target. According to the system's feedback, Chan Chi-Chi had already made a move on her brother. The original successor of the Chan family was now in a vegetative state. As for Chan Chi-Chi, she was busy fighting for power with various people in the family. There was still some time before she could secure her position as the heir. Gu Shengyin now had several methods. First, he could make the first move and kill Chan Chi-Chi before she attacked him. However, after thinking for a while, Gu Shengyin gave up the idea. Chen Chi-Chi's black magic master was always by her side. Gu Shengyin didn't have anything close to her, so it was unlikely that she would succeed. Unless he went to the imperial capital in person. However, the imperial capital was the Chen family's main base. Gu Shengyin was afraid that by that time, Chan Chi-Chi would have already taken control of everything. Secondly, he had to find a way to remove the curse on the eldest son of the Chen family. The Chen family's eldest young master was not mentioned in the storyline. She only knew that he was 23 years old and was a very powerful man. The reason why he fell for it this time was because he never believed in such unorthodox methods. At the same time, he was not prepared for his biological sister, who had the same father and mother, to make a move on him. If the Chen family's eldest young master woke up and found out that it was all his sister's doing, the Chen family would probably become lively. With Chen Chi-Chi's methods, she might not necessarily be a match for the Chen family's eldest young master, who had been raised as the heir since childhood. Chapter 6. The male lead should be getting thicker soon, not White Tiger. Continue to ask for more votes. The more votes there are, the more energetic aloof branch will be in writing. See you later. Chapter 1689. Gu Shengyin slowly rotated the barbecue rack in her hand. She was thinking about all kinds of things. Done. A strong aroma came from the barbecue rack. Gu Shengyin sniffed it gently. The white tiger lay quietly beside her. Gu Shengyin looked at the white tiger with some regret. After all, it was a puppet. It was different from a real life after all. In this situation, if the white tiger was really a beast, it would probably jump up and eat the meat. Gu Shengyin slowly cut the meat with a clean knife and chewed. It tasted good. After eating the whole leg of the lamb, Gu Shengyin wrapped the remaining leg with a clean leaf and prepared to eat it for dinner. She walked to her big room. The half-completed puppet doll was still lying there alone. Gu Shengyin planned to finish it. It was also because Gu Shengyin had already accomplished so much. Otherwise, Gu Shengyin did not intend to continue. She had thought about it. She would not make so many puppets. After she finished the puppet doll in her hand, she would go to the capital. Instead of waiting for others to come to her door, it was better to seize the opportunity and make the first move. Anyway, Chen Chi-Chi was not a good person. Gu Shengyin would not bear any burden because of it. Puppet dolls were different from clay sculptures and so on. His 4 limbs were separated and refined with special materials, and then pieced together. This way, it could ensure the flexibility of the joints. As for the special materials, Gu Shengyin only knew that they were collected according to the ancient books. Some materials with very obscure names were refined with a very special method. The finished product refined in this way looked similar to porcelain. It was smooth, delicate, and very beautiful. However, the degree of hardness was completely different from porcelain. Take the white tiger for example. Basically, if it fell from a height of dozens of meters, the possibility of the white tiger being crippled was not high. For Gu Shengyin, who received Dean's memory and had the invincible system, refining the materials and carving the appearance of the body was not difficult. The key was the runes at the back. He couldn't afford to make even the slightest mistake. If there was even the slightest mistake, this puppet would be completely destroyed. Gu Shengyin quietly looked at the porcelain doll in front of her. He looked very small, about the size of a person's head. His skin was snow white, and his face was delicate. His eyes were tightly shut, and he was wearing a silver-white ancient-style robe. He looked no different from a normal child. At this stage, the doll would probably be a very beautiful piece of art. Perhaps someone would spend a lot of money to buy it for their collection. Gu Shengyin took a deep breath and decided to wait until nighttime. He would wait until the moon was out and the yin qi was thicker, then he would draw the runes and condense the yin qi on his body. She got up and realized that after sitting for an entire afternoon, her entire body was stiff and sore. Gu Shengyin glanced around the large house. Looking at all kinds of humanoid and beast-shaped puppets, she felt lucky that this place was always brightly lit. If she suddenly entered such a place at night, she would probably be shocked. When she went out, the sun had already set in the west. Gu Shengyin went to pick some edible mushrooms and used the remaining mutton to boil a pot of soup. She put the mushrooms into the soup and heated up the leftover roast mutton leg for dinner. Chapter 1690. The woman's eyes lit up. Really? The man's face darkened when he heard her questioning tone. He snorted coldly. What? You don't believe me? The woman sensed his displeasure and quickly smiled. How could that be? I naturally believe in your abilities. It's just that my brother has always been lucky. The bald man's expression eased a little, but he still looked disdainful. So what if he's lucky? He won't be able to escape from me just because he's lucky. The woman's face lit up with joy. She took the initiative to hug the man's arm and gently rubbed it against her chest. The meaning behind this was self-evident. Then, Chi-Chi, I'll wait for your good news. The following scene was not suitable for children. They could only see two naked bodies tightly entwined together on a large black bed. Just as Chen Bue's consciousness was about to fall into a deep sleep, a huge suction force suddenly came from somewhere. It passed through the layers of gray fog and sucked him in. Oh no! The bald man with runes on his head, who had just finished a round of sex and was resting on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes. What's wrong? Chen Chi-Chi asked in a daze as she nestled in his arms. The tame headmaster's expression was very ugly. The black magic I cast on your brother has been broken. What? Chen Chi-Chi immediately woke up. What's going on? Didn't you say it was foolproof? Chen Chi-Chi's expression was also a little ugly. Now you're telling me it's been broken? Chen Chi-Chi was actually a little uneasy. She thought about her brother's usual methods. If he found out that she was the one who had set him up, the tame headmaster said, I used black magic to seal his soul in an area with no spiritual energy. According to the original plan, his soul would be destroyed in 10 days, and he would die in this world. He frowned. But just now, I felt that his soul suddenly disappeared from the area of no spiritual energy. It was as if something had barged in and forcibly taken away your brother's soul. Chen Chi-Chi was a little anxious. Then what do we do now? If my brother wakes up, neither of us will be able to escape. The tame headmaster said calmly, Don't worry. He closed his eyes and muttered something under his breath, as if he was sensing something. After a while, he suddenly opened his eyes, and his expression relaxed. Chen Chi-Chi looked at him and felt a little relieved. How is it? The tame headmaster said, You and I don't have to worry too much. I just sensed that your brother's soul hasn't returned to his body. Instead, he can no longer be sensed in this world. Chen Chi-Chi was delighted. So, the tame headmaster smiled and said, So your brother is either dead or some evil sorcerer just happened to cast a spell and took his soul. After the huge rock in his heart was lifted, his mood became much better. The taming master looked at Chen Chi-Chi in his arms and couldn't help but reach out to pinch her face. Don't worry. Even if your brother isn't dead, I'm afraid that his life will be worse than death if he falls into the hands of such a person. Chen Chi-Chi's heart finally relaxed. However, she still said in a low voice, I don't wish for him to live a life worse than death. It's better if he dies quickly so as to avoid any more trouble. Chapter 1691. Chen Bue felt as though his entire body was being pulled. He did not know how much time had passed as the world spun around him. His body, his thoughts, his everything seemed to be constantly being torn apart and reassembled. Until everything settled down. He felt that his body was very heavy. It was as though he was trapped inside something and was unable to move. He was also unable to open his eyes. However, he could still see his surroundings. It seemed to be night time as his surroundings were not bright at all. However, he could clearly see his surroundings. A woman in black was sitting before him. This woman was very good-looking. However, her appearance was very abnormal. It looked like... What did she look like? His thoughts were in a mess and he was unable to recall anything. The woman used her pale and thin hand to draw something on his body. Originally, he should not have felt it. However, he slowly sensed that as the mysterious runes on his body became denser, his entire body was slowly filled with power. His feelings towards the woman in black also became clearer. Oh, the smell on her body was very comfortable. There seemed to be something on her body that attracted him greatly. He wanted to get close to her, hug her, and eat her up. After finishing the last rune, Gu Shengyin gave a long sigh of relief. She opened her eyes and put down the brush in her somewhat sore hand. In truth, not even half an hour had passed. However, Gu Shengyin felt that her entire body was lacking in strength. She lowered her eyes to look at the little doll in front of her. His body, which was originally white like porcelain, was now covered with countless runes. Under the dim moonlight, the doll appeared to be filled with a sense of mystery. Gu Shengyin moved a hand and put the little silver robe on the doll. She also felt the results of her work. It actually managed to condense so much yin energy. She was extremely shocked. In terms of energy, this little puppet doll was almost comparable to the white tiger. Just as Gu Shengyin was feeling shocked, the little puppet doll in front of her suddenly opened its eyes. Gu Shengyin was shocked. Then, she saw the beautiful pair of jade-green eyes of the doll. Under the dim moonlight, the pair of eyes were like two clusters of ghostly fire, looking somewhat horrifying. It actually opened its eyes on its own. Could it be that this puppet doll already has its own consciousness? Gu Shengyin mumbled doubtfully. He blinked and looked at the woman in front of him. With his current ability to understand, he still couldn't fully understand the meaning of her words. But it was fine. Gu Shengyin looked at the tiny puppet doll that was no more than 20 centimeters tall. It blinked its eyes and started moving on its own. His movements were not stiff at all. He crawled from her gown all the way to her hand. What was he trying to do? Gu Shengyin soon found out. Because the little doll suddenly hugged her finger and started nibbling on it. His teeth were very sharp. In an instant, they had already pierced through Gu Shengyin's flesh and sunk into her skin, sucking her sweet blood. The moment she felt the pain, Gu Shengyin raised her hand and wanted to throw the doll away. However, the system stopped her. Host, wait a moment. Gu Shengyin was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, there were more things in her mind. Some messy thoughts were vaguely mixed with emotions like delicious and delicious. Chapter 1692. Gu Shengyin was stunned. This was the puppet doll's thought process? While she was still in shock, the puppet doll in front of her suddenly stopped sucking her blood. He was still hugging Gu Shengyin's finger, but gently and reluctantly, he retracted his teeth. Because he saw that when he bit down, this person seemed to be in pain. Although he liked to eat, she was in pain. The puppet doll hesitated for a few seconds, but still decided to give up on the delicacy. He even stuck out his tongue and licked Gu Shengyin's finger a few times. Under his licking, the small wound miraculously stopped bleeding and became much smaller. Then, the two people, one big and one small, started staring at each other. Gu Shengyin had never encountered such a situation before. She asked the system, "What kind of situation is this?" The system replied, "I have not encountered such a situation either. Host, please wait for a moment. I will quickly go through the information." The system quickly said, "There are no special records of this situation." However, according to the information passed down by the puppet masters, the system deduced that when the host created this puppet doll, the host already had a mental connection with it. Furthermore, the host used his own blood to feed it. Now, the host seems to have formed a blood contract between the two of them. So now, the puppet doll is equivalent to the host's magical item. However, it has its own consciousness. The host should be able to share consciousness with it. Gu Shengyin nodded. Yes, I seem to be able to sense its thoughts. Speaking of this, Gu Shengyin wanted to facepalm. Because at this moment, from the puppet doll's thought process, she felt a strong sense of, I like you very much, I want to eat you, delicious, and other similar emotions. Without a doubt, the delicious object that it wanted to eat was herself. However, what warmed Gu Shengyin's heart was that there was another wave of emotions in the puppet doll's mind. It was probably the thoughts of like, pain, and don't want pain. While Gu Shengyin was talking to the system, the puppet doll gave up looking at Gu Shengyin. It grabbed Gu Shengyin's clothes and started to climb up. He crawled from her hand to her shoulder, then found her collarbone and lay on it with satisfaction. So warm, so fragrant, delicious. Hold it in. Gu Shengyin didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she sensed the information transmitted by the little doll. System, he wants to eat me? The system calmly comforted her. Host, you don't have to worry. For the puppet consciousness condensed from Yin Qi, the woman of Yin Hour has a great attraction to them. Furthermore, your blood has been sucked by him. After the two of you formed a contract, as a puppet doll that has just gained sentience, the current host is similar to his mother. He will like you very much, want to get close to you, and even want to monopolize you. This kind of puppet will not bite back at the host. Gu Shengyin nodded. She did feel a strong desire in the puppet doll's consciousness, but there was another stronger desire that seemed to be restraining him. And in the dark, Gu Shengyin also had a feeling that this puppet doll was not only unwilling to hurt her in its consciousness, but also seemed to be bound in its soul that it could not hurt its creator. First watch. 7 chapters left. Speaking of which, did you all go to school today? Monday is really cold to the Pacific Ocean. Looking for a wave of votes, monthly votes, recommendation votes, smashing a wood. Chapter 1693. However, she kept hearing him say that he wanted to eat her. Gu Shengyin still could not get used to it. Some things seemed to be engraved in the depths of this body. Gu Shengyin's consciousness swept across the puppet doll, and then cut off some kind of connection. Then, she realized that the emotions of the other consciousness, which had been constantly making its presence known in her mind, had disappeared. She heaved a sigh of relief. Gu Shengyin tilted her head and looked at the satisfied puppet doll lying on her neck. She felt helpless, but strangely satisfied. She slowly stood up, and a strong sense of fatigue came over her. She did not feel this way when she was sitting down, but once she stood up, Gu Shengyin felt as if all the strength in her body had been sucked out. She stood for a long time before she slowly recovered and walked towards her little wooden house. What she needed most now was rest. As for the rest, she would deal with it tomorrow morning. Gu Shengyin forced herself to walk into her house. After a simple wash, she fell asleep almost instantly. She was really too tired. Faint moonlight shone in through the open window. The puppet doll, which seemed to have no signs of life all this time, moved slightly. He used his short and chubby hands to prop himself up and sat up. His gaze swept across the room. I don't know what this place is. After looking around, the puppet doll looked at the woman lying on the ground. She had her eyes closed, and her expression was as cold as when she was awake. The puppet doll tilted his head and looked at her quietly. After an unknown period of time, he raised his little hand. His dark purple fingernails looked exactly like Gu Shengyin's. He seemed to be curious as he gently scratched Gu Shengyin's lips. He was really careful, as if he was scratching an itch. Although he did not have any complicated consciousness, the puppet doll still knew that his fingernails seemed to be very powerful. He could not use too much strength. Otherwise, she would be in trouble. So soft, so warm. That was the puppet doll's feeling. His own body was just a pile of cold materials, and the body temperature of a human was a very attractive existence to him. Not to mention, From the moment he saw the person in front of him, he couldn't help but want to get close to her. The puppet doll seemed to be addicted to playing with it. After a while, it would poke Gu Shengyin's mouth. Then, it would open its emerald-like eyes and carefully look at Gu Shengyin. After making sure that she wouldn't wake up, he continued to poke her. He treated this as an extremely fun game, and never got tired of it. The system, it didn't need to rest as it silently watched the puppet doll's actions. The system actually wanted to shout loudly in Gu Shengyin's mind, "Wake up, host. There's an effective pervert taking advantage of you while you're sleeping." But in the end, the system remained silent. This was because it could tell that the puppet doll seemed to be a little fellow that didn't know anything. Moreover, its behavior showed that it really liked to get close to its host. Of course, the main reason why the system remained silent was that the host was really too tired. It rarely had such good sleep, so it didn't want to disturb it. After playing for a while, the puppet doll finally seemed to be satisfied. It looked left and right, and still chose the warm spot between Gu Shengyin's neck. It closed its eyes and fell asleep with its host. Chapter 1694. The next day, Gu Shengyin was woken up by a disturbance. She felt her hair being pulled by something. The other party didn't have much strength, so it didn't hurt. But this feeling of having a part of her body being played with in the palm of someone else's hand was really unpleasant. In a daze, she casually pulled her hair and flipped over impatiently. This was great. Originally, the puppet doll was sitting on the side of Gu Shengyin's bed, holding her long hair and twirling it in circles. However, his technique was obviously not very good. He accidentally wrapped his wrists and fingers around the hair and was trying hard to untie it. Then, with Gu Shengyin's tug, he flipped over. The puppet doll, whose fingers and wrists were entangled, was pulled by a huge force just like that, Bayou. In a perfect parabola, the small figure flew directly from the inside of the bed to the floor outside the window. This time, the hair was untied. In a daze, Gu Shengyin heard the sound of something falling to the ground. She opened her eyes and saw a small figure in front of her in a prostrating position on the ground, trying hard to get up. Gu Shengyin. She silently thought about it and realized that she seemed to have done something terrible. Just as she was feeling awkward, the puppet doll finally sat up on its own. However, she didn't know if it was because Gu Shengyin had a bad taste when she made it, but this doll's limbs were short and small, but it was very fat. Gu Shengyin watched as the doll tried to stand up on its own several times, but in the end, it sat back down on its butt. Gu Shengyin couldn't help but laugh out loud. Early in the morning, her mood improved because of this. Hearing the laughter behind him, the puppet doll turned around expressionlessly. She didn't know if it was Gu Shengyin's illusion, but she seemed to have seen a hint of grievance from the doll's cute and serious expression. Gu Shengyin coughed dryly and secretly wondered if it was inappropriate for her to laugh at this little guy. She was about to get off the bed and pick him up when she saw the doll actually flew up. Technically speaking, it should be floating. Gu Shengyin felt like she was watching a fantasy film. She watched as the little meatball floated up from the ground without the help of any tools and slowly floated in the direction of Gu Shengyin. Then, with a thud sound, it landed on the soft blanket on the bed. Gu Shengyin. The puppet doll seemed to be hit by the impact. His short limbs struggled in the soft blanket for a long time before he finally pulled himself out and sat in front of Gu with a serious expression with his face, says the two people s's again. Gu Shengyin laughed. Ha 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 ha. She hugged her stomach and laughed until she was out of breath on the bed. Where's the een object? Where's the perverse? Gu Shengyin expressed that he only saw stupidity. The puppet doll tilted its head and looked at its master with an exaggerated expression. He didn't know that it was a smile, but the bloodline contract allowed him to feel that the person in front of him was very happy. It was a very comfortable feeling. Although it looked strange, it was fine as long as she was comfortable. He thought to himself with a serious expression, allowing his master to laugh on his own. Chapter 1695. When Gu Shengyin was finally done laughing, She straightened her body and looked at the little figure in front of her. I have to give you a name. She frowned as if she was thinking about something. A name? The puppet doll was confused. He knew what it was. It was probably something like a code name. He felt that he should have a name. What should he be called? He was called... I'll call you Doll. Anyway, I won't make any other dolls, Gu Shengyin said to herself. She looked at the little figure in front of her. You should be able to understand what I'm saying, right? From now on, your name will be Doll. The puppet doll stared at Gu Shengyin with his big green eyes and nodded. Then Gu Shengyin pointed at herself. I'm your master. My name is Diane. She just said it casually. She didn't intend for the little doll to remember it. But the next moment, the little doll's rosy mouth actually stuttered these two words. Diane. Gu Shengyin was surprised. How could his spiritual intelligence be so high? Even if she went through Diane's memories, she rarely saw a puppet that could do what Doll did. Could it be that the so-called power of the blood race in her body really made this puppet so powerful that it even surpassed all her previous works? Gu Shengyin didn't understand. This was probably the most likely possibility. She thought for a moment and was about to get up. She had already made up her mind. After packing up here, she would set off for the capital. She would try to secretly cure the eldest son of the Chen family. This morning, the system told her that the black magic spell cast by the Black Magic Master on the eldest son of the Chen family had been broken. This was out of the original plot. According to the original plot, today should be the day that the eldest son of the Chen family died. The black magic spell cast by the Black Magic Master was not broken. Old Master Chen had invited several masters, but they all said that they couldn't do anything. Could it be that some hidden powerful figure had made a move? Although the eldest son of the Chen family didn't die, he didn't wake up. The system didn't know the reason. Gu Shengyin planned to go and see for herself. But this little kid in front of him... Gu Shengyin helplessly looked at him. I'm going to wash my face. You lie on my shoulder. Be careful not to get wet. The doll pretended not to hear her and continued to hold on tightly to Gu Shengyin's collar as if she was afraid that she would take her down. Seeing him like this, Gu Shengyin couldn't do anything. Until she realized that no matter if she bent down or walked, the other party was still sitting steadily on Mount Tai without any signs of falling, she let him be. Gu Shengyin had an inexplicable feeling that she was raising a son. Walking out of the door, Gu Shengyin released the white tiger and prepared to let it hunt for prey as today's rations. As soon as the white tiger was released, it howled and rubbed against Gu Shengyin's body. In an instant, Gu Shengyin felt a little cold. The white tiger also sensed something. It took a step away from Gu Shengyin's side and roared towards Gu Shengyin's left side. She felt something and looked towards her shoulder. She saw a doll that she had never seen before. The little doll still looked the same, but at this moment, there was a faint glow in his green eyes. There was also a trace of black evil aura coming out of his body. He stared coldly at the white tiger, and there was a cold murderous intent in his eyes. This appearance was somewhat similar to the evil creatures in the legends. Doll, I'm jealous. 6th update. 4th update today. Please, vote. Today's votes were half of yesterday's. Gao Lengji was scared. Monday was too scary. Chapter 1696. White Tiger sensed the danger too. It lowered its body and scratched the ground uneasily with its front paws. It let out a warning growl, which was a sign of encountering a strong enemy. Gu Shengyin suddenly had an idea. She was about to stop it when a black shadow flashed in front of her. A black mist escaped from Doll's body and formed a ferocious ghost face in the air. It pounced on White Tiger at an extremely fast speed. It did not seem like it was going to show any mercy. White Tiger flashed its sharp claws. Gu Shengyin saw White Tiger's huge body fighting with the black shadow. Finally, White Tiger roared and swallowed the black shadow. However, in Gu Shengyin's eyes, the White Tiger's specially refined fur, which even bullets could not penetrate, had a few holes gnawed out of it by the ghost face. the system exclaimed, "Host, your doll is so fierce." Gu Shengyin was speechless. What was with the unpleasant feeling of having her lines stolen? Seeing that the two of them were still at daggers drawn and ready to attack again, Gu Shengyin couldn't be bothered to say anything. He subconsciously gave 2 orders in his mind. Stop. The white tiger obediently stopped what it was doing and raised its head to roar at Gu Shengyin. However, doll resisted. Gu Shengyin could feel that he was unwilling to let go. She gave another order. Doll stared at Gu Shengyin with his green eyes and finally lowered his head unwillingly. The black mist around him returned to his body, as if nothing had happened. He felt Gu Shengyin's emotions from the bottom of his heart. His master was unhappy because he was disobedient. Doll raised his head again and carefully poked Gu Shengyin's earlobe with his sharp nails. When Gu Shengyin turned to look at him, his expression immediately said, "I know I'm wrong, I didn't do anything." It had to be said that having such a face was still very advantageous. At the very least, Gu Shengyin lost her temper instantly. Gu Shengyin sat on the ground while White Tiger lay beside her. The doll felt wronged as Gu Shengyin forcefully pulled it off her body and placed it on the other side. Gu Shengyin looked at the two of them seriously. She didn't open her mouth. Instead, she used her mind to communicate with them. The gist of it was that they shouldn't go against each other anymore. Everyone was the same, so they should get along well. White Tiger quickly made his intentions clear. The other party had malicious intentions towards him. Gu Shengyin looked at Doll, who hadn't said anything. Then, she felt Doll's intermittent thoughts transmitted to her. "You're not allowed to get close to me. Mine is mine." Gu Shengyin froze. She didn't understand what the doll was trying to say. It wasn't until Doll couldn't help but move and climb onto her shoulder that she realized that he was talking about her. Just as the system had said, Doll was extremely close to her and had developed a terrifying possessive desire. However, perhaps because of his cute appearance, Gu Shengyin didn't feel disgusted. Instead, she felt slightly helpless. Could it be that Doll really thought of her as his mother? It wasn't strange for children to have a certain degree of possessiveness towards their mothers. Chapter 1697. All in all, under Gu Shengyin's insistence, White Tiger and Doll were finally able to get along with each other. Of course, this was what Gu Shengyin saw. She did not notice that White Tiger had become less and less fond of getting close to her. Instead, White Tiger was acting cute with her. It was normal that Gu Shengyin did not notice. After all, she had just come into this body not long ago. Although she had inherited Dean's memories, she did not pay much attention to some of her daily habits. She did not know that on that night, after she fell asleep, Doll, who had been occupying the most intimate position beside her, silently floated out. Then, he found White Tiger, who had turned into a little white tiger model lying on the grass. When the two met, it was like a raging fire. Don't think too much. They fought very straightforwardly. The result of this fight was obvious. Doll won. The result of his victory was that White Tiger was not allowed to get close to Gu Shengyin and act cute in front of her. Master belonged to him and him alone. No one else was allowed to get close to her. White Tiger was very dissatisfied. As a creation, it was innate to be close to its master. However, when the black room behind Doll transformed into a bloody mouth, which meant that if it did not agree, it would directly devour it, White Tiger silently chose to agree. Inspector was different from other things. White Tiger and Doll were both inspectors that had gained consciousness. White Tiger and Doll could devour each other, and the devourer's ability would probably be higher. Therefore, White Tiger tearfully agreed to this humiliating contract for its own life. Doll flew back in a good mood. Then, it rubbed its face against Gu Shengyin's smooth face with a satisfied expression. It opened its eyes and silently looked at her. That White Tiger was an idiot. Doll actually would not devour it at all. This was because he could sense that Master liked that White Tiger. If he devoured it, Master would probably be unhappy again. Dolly was a little worried. She always felt that her master was easily upset over small things. When Master was unhappy, doll would be unhappy too. He did not like that expression on Master's face. The bottom of his heart was bitter and very uncomfortable. At this moment, the puppet doll did not know that this emotion was called heartache. Over the next few days, Gu Shengyin ordered all the puppets in his residence to leave this place for the time being and go to other places far away. These puppets were not like White Tiger and Doll. They only listened to their master's orders mechanically. They moved forward until Gu Shengyin called for them to stop. Then, without Gu Shengyin's command, they would remain in a standing or walking position until their master gave the next command, or until something happened to their bodies and they could no longer move. Gu Shengyin looked around. After making sure that she didn't miss anything important, she walked out of the valley. She had to go to the imperial capital to take a look. The system said that the eldest son of the Chen family had been like that during this period of time. However, there was an expert guarding him now, so there was no need to worry about that black magic master hurting him a second time. He was temporarily safe. Gu Shengyin searched the wardrobe for a long time. Fortunately, she found a few normal clothes that Dian had never worn before. According to her memory, these were all sent by the enthusiastic customer from before. And the customer was very considerate. According to Dean's appearance, he chose punk style and heavy metal style clothes. In this way, after Gu Shengyin put it on, other people would probably think that she was just a fan of weird and unique styles and dressed up a little exaggeratedly. 8th update. 2 more chapters. See you later. Chapter 1698. Gu Shengyin looked at himself in the mirror. He was wearing a shiny, sequined trench coat and a pair of tight leather pants. His waist-length black hair was tied up in a high ponytail. Speaking of which, she did not even need to put on makeup. Her seductive and cold aura was fully displayed. However, Gu Shengyin still wanted to complain. With such a look, she would definitely attract attention wherever she went. If normal people saw her, they would either think of her as a celebrity or an artist. What if someone took a picture and Chen Qiqi saw it? After thinking for a while, Gu Shengyin took out a pair of black sunglasses and covered half of her face. Very good. Even if someone took a picture of her, if Chen Qiqi could recognize her, Gu Shengyin would be convinced. When she was changing her clothes, Doll and White Tiger were chased out by Gu Shengyin. Doll was already floating up and down in the air impatiently. He could completely control this skill now. The door finally opened from the inside. Doll subconsciously looked in the direction of the door. Then, plop. Very unhappily, he came into close contact with the ground again. However, this degree of fall did not pose any danger to him at all. Doll nimbly levitated from the ground and looked at the person in front of him in confusion. As the person was exposed under the sunlight, it was really too eye-catching. He could not help but stretch out his chubby hand and rub his eyes in a very human-like manner. Gu Shengyin. Was it that exaggerated? Doll was stunned to see a stranger coming out of his master's room. Then, he observed carefully. This person's body and aura were exactly the same as his master's. Very delicious, very sweet. The feeling of being connected by blood was also the same. So, the woman in front of him was his master? Gu Shengyin looked at the puppet doll in front of her with a very realistic expression of disdain. White Tiger not far from him also growled softly to express its dissatisfaction. Gu Shengyin. Was it really that eye-catching? Actually, Gu Shengyin had misunderstood. Doll and White Tiger were both consciousnesses formed from Yin energy. This determined their preferences and habits. As beings of extreme Yin, they liked dampness, darkness, and negative emotions. Wait, such an environment. However, Gu Shengyin's shiny outfit made them feel uncomfortable. However, even though Dolly wasn't used to it, after confirming that Gu Shengyin was its master, it quickly floated to Gu Shengyin's shoulder and sat firmly. It also habitually extended its nails to poke Gu Shengyin's earlobe. This was his exclusive seat. Although there was something wrong with his master's taste, as an obedient child, he still had to love his master. Then, Gu Shengyin grabbed him with one hand. Gu Shengyin looked at the doll. He said seriously, For the rest of the time, you can't sit on my shoulders. Doll was puzzled. Gu Shengyin pointed at him and then at White Tiger. She did not say anything. Instead, she sent a message into their minds. It was to let them know that what they were doing was very strange in normal human society. If they were discovered, the consequences could be very serious. Of course, as the master, it would be very troublesome for her. Doll was very disapproving when he heard the first part. However, when he heard that it would bring trouble to his master, he hesitated for a moment and obediently stopped moving. He craved power. And in the current situation, the most direct and convenient way was Gu Shengyin's blood. Gu Shengyin felt that it was very strange. In fact, except at the beginning, when Doll instinctively sucked her blood when he was just created, although he seemed to desire it, he had never asked for it. But this time, the soul-deep desire surprised Gu Shengyin. Today's 10th update. Asking for a ticket to say good night. Chapter 1700. Gu Shengyin only hesitated for a moment before sending a thought to the doll. She agreed. The doll's reaction was very fast. Almost as soon as the owner agreed and put his hand into his pocket, his sharp teeth pierced into the owner's flesh. This was the feeling. It was incomparably beautiful and mesmerizing. As the blood flowed, the doll could feel a strong force entering his body. He closed his eyes in satisfaction. Gu Shengyin, on the other hand, let Doll go when he sensed that the slight blood loss would not affect him. Slowly, the burning desire in the doll's heart calmed down. What followed was an increasingly strong force in his body and some scattered things that appeared in his mind. Capital. Sister. Chen what? His delicate brows were tightly furrowed, as if he was trying hard to recall the things that he should have remembered but was forced to forget. His dark green eyes suddenly opened. He remembered. Chen Biyue. Gu Shengyin felt that the little guy in her pocket did not seem to need her blood anymore. He hugged his finger and licked it gently. In the end, he did not let go. Instead, he used his finger as a tool to grind his teeth and nibbled on it gently. This was not the first time this had happened. Gu Shengyin completely treated it as the doll's behavior. She only smiled and did not say anything. What she didn't know was that her puppet doll had already recalled some things. He was not a self-consciousness formed by the Yin Spectre. He was a normal person. His name was Chan Biyue. He had inexplicably fallen into a strange gray place. When he woke up in a daze, he had become a puppet doll that had no consciousness and called someone his master. Chen Biyue's heart was filled with anger. Was it this person? Did she cause him to become like this? But subconsciously, he was certain that it was not this person. This person would not harm him. Then, what had happened to him at that time? He pondered with a gloomy expression. Suddenly, he felt something in his mouth. When he realized what it was, his expression changed. He was nibbling on someone else's finger. He quickly spat out Gu Shengyin's finger and wiped his mouth with his sleeve. Then, he heard a gentle voice in his mind. Are you full? Before his mind could react, the body spontaneously stuck to the hand beside him and even rubbed against it, indicating that he was full. Chen Biyue was speechless. He could not control the urge to get close to her. The corners of Gu Shengyin's lips curled up. Knowing that he was full, he reached out and patted his head comfortingly before pulling his hand away. She raised her finger and looked at it. Well, the small cut was almost invisible. At this moment, Gu Shengyin did not know that her puppet doll was sitting in her pocket with a serious expression on his face. The transportation in modern society was very advanced. Soon, the plane landed in the capital's airport. Gu Shengyin walked out of the airport with many passengers. The feeling in his heart was getting stronger. He wanted to return to the Chen family and see what kind of situation he was in. His body was calling for him. He could feel it. Chapter 1701. Gu Shangyin asked the system to quickly calculate a route to a 5-star hotel not far from the Chen family's residence. She booked a presidential suite for a month and prepared to observe the Chen family's recent situation. Chen Biyue was quite happy when Gu Shangyin chose the location, because this place was also very close to his destination. He was still thinking about what reason he should find to go to the Chen family's residence. After all, he had signed a contract with this mysterious puppet master. If he did anything unusual, she would definitely notice it immediately. Before he could confirm whether Gu Shangyin was a friend or foe, he didn't dare to be careless. Then, at night, Gu Shangyin gave an order that made Chen Biyue dumbfounded. Go to the Chen family and check on the Chen family's eldest son's current situation. Report his current situation and the Chen family's current situation to me. Chen Biyue was bewildered. He couldn't help but think, could this matter really have something to do with her? Could it be that the person in front of him did this to him? If this was really the case, if he could wake up one day, this culprit who caused him to become like this, Chen Biyue felt a little confused. According to his usual character, if he had a chance to fight back against someone who framed him and almost killed him, he definitely wouldn't let them off. Moreover, he would definitely cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, leaving no trace of trouble for himself. But if the target was the woman in front of him, Chen Biyue's heart actually wavered a little. He couldn't bear for her to die, whether it was because of the power of the contract or because of his feelings in the depths of his mind. He didn't want this woman to disappear. Then, he would break her legs, break her wings, and imprison her in a place where only he could see her. Chen Biyue lowered his eyes and thought so. If Gu Shangyin could listen to her puppet doll's thoughts, she would definitely be able to see a series of very bloody and violent scenes that were not suitable for children. She looked at the motionless puppet doll and felt strange. Doll. Gu Shangyin had a strange feeling. She felt that doll was much more complicated than her other pet, the simple-minded white tiger. Chen Biyue's eyes trembled when he heard the word, baby. This kind of strange name, what was it trying to do? He quickly regained his composure and nodded, indicating that he understood. Then, a black mist spread out from his body and enveloped his entire body. In Gu Shangyin's eyes, the doll that was in front of him just a moment ago had suddenly disappeared. All that was left in the air was a small cluster of black mist that was invisible to the naked eye. Even Gu Shangyin had to rely on the connection between her and the puppet bloodline to see his trace. The black fog circled around Gu Shangyin twice before drifting out of the window. At this moment, Chen Biyue wanted to go home and take a look. He urgently wanted to know what his current situation was. Auntie Fong had been a nanny in the Chen family for more than 10 years. She was considered an elder in the Chen family. She had also watched eldest young master grow up. Now that eldest young master had been unconscious for such a long time and was lying on the bed, the other servants felt that eldest young master was hopeless in this lifetime. They also slacked off taking care of him. Chapter 1702. At this time, only Auntie Fong would insist on cleaning the unconscious Chen Biyue every day. She would open the doors and windows regularly to ventilate and tidy the room. On this day, when Auntie Fong opened the window in the morning, a gust of cold wind suddenly brushed past her body. Auntie Fong couldn't help but shiver. She looked up at the sky strangely. It was supposed to be a sunny day, wasn't it? Worried that the cold wind would catch the young master cold, Auntie Fong stood by the window for a while. After confirming that the cold wind was just a coincidence, she left the window. Walking to the bedside, Auntie Fong looked at the handsome man on the bed who looked a little pale because of being bedridden for a long time and sighed. "Young master, you have to hurry and come over. Even an old woman like me can feel that the atmosphere in the house has been very abnormal recently. If you don't come over soon, I'm afraid that the house won't be peaceful in the future." Auntie Fong wasn't worried about herself. At worst, she could just leave when the time came. But if the young master didn't wake up soon, what would happen in the future? What Auntie Fong couldn't see was that at the place where she had just been, hidden behind the curtains, wisps of black fog were swirling around, making the air in that place seem extra gloomy and cold. The puppet doll listened to Auntie Fong's long-winded words for a long time before turning to leave, closing the door behind him. When Auntie Fong went out, she only left the door ajar. When she walked past the corner of the corridor, the door seemed to be pushed by something at the empty entrance. With a click, the door lock automatically buckled. At the same time, the wisps of black fog by the curtains slowly condensed in front of the bed. Slowly, they formed the shape of a human baby in mid-air. It was the puppet doll, or rather, Chan Bue now. Chan Bue slowly looked at his body on the bed. At such a close distance, he felt very strange. He could feel the current state of his body, as if his consciousness was still in his body, but he couldn't control this body. The person on the bed was clearly not in a good state. Even if there was someone taking care of him carefully, the long period of bedridden had made this body weak and weak. The puppet doll Chan Bue carefully approached the window. Then, he reached out a hand and gently touched his body. He could feel his body calling out to him. The moment his hand touched Chan Bue's body on the bed, there seemed to be a strong pulling force from that body. Puppet doll Chan Bue was overjoyed. He did not resist and allowed this phenomenon to be discovered without hesitation. Perhaps this was the opportunity for him to return to his own body. However, reality proved that the matter of the soul returning to its original place was not that simple. Chan Bue could clearly feel his soul enter his body, but it was expelled in a moment. It was as if his body had started to reject the entry of his soul. He didn't believe in such a thing. He persevered and tried again, but it still didn't work. After many attempts, Chan Bue finally accepted his fate. He was sure that if he couldn't find someone to help him, he wouldn't be able to return to his body on his own. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, Gu Xingyin's figure subconsciously appeared. Chapter 1703. There was a saying that when a person was in trouble, the first person he would turn to for help would be the person he trusted the most at the bottom of his heart. Chan Bue didn't expect that when he was in trouble, the person he would turn to wasn't his biological father or his good friend. Instead, it was the woman he had only known for a short 10 days. It was a strange feeling. However, Chan Bue shook his head in the end. He wanted to trust her, but who knew if he could trust her? Since he couldn't return to his body, there was no point in staying here any longer. Chan Bue looked around and didn't find anything wrong with the room he was in. Then, he turned into a dark room and left. He didn't leave immediately. Instead, he wandered around the Chen family. Speaking of which, he had been in a daze for so long. He didn't know how the Chen family was doing. As soon as he came out, Chan Bue saw his father. Old Master Chen was wearing a dark red tang suit and holding a wooden walking stick. He was in high spirits and was politely chatting with an old man with a calm expression. Hearing how his father addressed him, Chan Bue knew in his heart that this was probably another person from the metaphysics school. Although this person from the Xian sect looked calm, he didn't hide the arrogance in his eyes. Chan Bue only glanced at him and lost interest. In his opinion, this person from the Xian sect looked like an expert. Even he could kill 5 of them by himself. He was most likely another person who pretended to be mysterious and fished for fame. From what he heard, his father must have thought a lot before inviting this master over, hoping that he could wake up his eldest son. Chan Bue didn't have any hope in this matter. He just felt sorry for his father. Obviously, old Master Chan still hadn't given up on his son. He watched as the master entered his room calmly. After seeing him, he was hesitant. Then, he was shocked. In the end, his expression was very ugly. Not only Chan Bue, but old Master Chan could also see that there was nothing he could do. In the end, the master only said a lot of things that normal people wouldn't understand. Then, he took the Chen family's generous reward and left. Chan Bue watched quietly as his father locked himself in the study. He didn't follow. Perhaps someone like his father didn't want anyone to see him in such a weak state. Chan Bue continued to walk around the house. When he passed by one of the rooms, he suddenly heard something that made his eyes turn cold. This was the room of his biological sister, Chen Qiqi. At this time, Chen Qiqi was talking to someone. The black fog ignored the tightly shut door and went straight in. Chen Qiqi was sitting on the bed in the room, holding her phone in one hand and tugging at the bed sheets in boredom with the other. Yes, the old man sent someone over again today, but it seems to be useless. Her tone was very cheerful when she said this. He didn't know what the other side said, but Chen Bue could roughly guess that they were proud of themselves. Because he immediately heard Chen Qiqi say, "Yes, yes, yes, my dear, you're really amazing. Well, not only are you good at black magic, in bed, you're even better." Chen Bue listened expressionlessly. His heart was strangely calm when he found out that his own sister was the one who tried to kill him. He even had a feeling that this was indeed the case. 4 watches. I'll do the rest later. The stupid author went out for a stroll in the north wind and pouring rain. She was frozen like a dog. Quick, I have some freshly baked tickets in my hands. Throw some of them at her to wake her up. Serious face. Chapter 1704. Chen Bue stared coldly at Chen Qiqi, who had her back to him. He didn't hesitate at all. With a thought, a cloud of black fog shrouded Chen Qiqi. What was the point of keeping a sister who wanted to kill him for her own selfish desires? Chen Qiqi felt a chill all over her body. She felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave in an instant, and couldn't help but scream. The person on the other side of the phone sensed that something was wrong and hurriedly asked her what was wrong. Since Chen Qiqi met this taming master, she had become a firm believer in metaphysics and fortune-telling. She didn't dare to hide anything from him and hurriedly told him about her current situation. The taming master was conceited, and he was very infatuated with Chen Qiqi's debauchery in bed. When he heard Chen Qiqi's request, he naturally asked her to go to the living room, a place with stronger yang energy, and he would immediately rush over. This was exactly what Chen Bue wanted. Chen Bue didn't leave. Chen Qiqi listened to the taming master and sat in the living room. He also hid in a corner in the shape of a cloud of black fog. Now the yin energy had completely entered Chen Qiqi's body. She had put on a coat, but she still felt very cold. The taming master quickly entered the room. The servants at home didn't let him in at first. Chen Qiqi said angrily, "This is my friend. Do you know how to do things? If not, get out of the Chen family." She looked at the taming master expectantly. "Dear, please take a look at me. What's wrong with me?" She couldn't help shivering as she spoke. The taming master reached out and touched Chen Qiqi's hand. It was May, but Chen Qiqi's hand was as cold as ice. He winked at Chen Qiqi. She understood and stood up. The two of them went upstairs to Chen Qiqi's room. Seeing this scene, the servants at home just sighed and shook their heads, as if they didn't like Mrs. behavior. Chen Bue followed them coldly. He put the yin energy on Chen Qiqi's body just now to draw out the person behind the scenes. Now he finally saw the real face of the person behind the scenes. The other party was a man who looked to be in his 30s. Previously, he was wearing a baseball cap when he came in. Now that he had taken off his cap, one could clearly see the dense runes engraved on his bald head. Chen Bue instantly thought of the runes on his puppet. The two were obviously not on the same page. However, Chen Bue felt an evil and powerful force from this man. This should be the black magic that this man practiced. When the taming master was about to examine Chen Qiqi, he suddenly frowned and glanced in the direction where Chen Bue was hiding. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt as if he was being watched by some ferocious beast. But when he sensed it carefully, he found that the feeling was gone. Chen Bue stood there quietly, allowing him to size him up. Not to mention the fact that he didn't have a physical body at the moment, it wasn't easy for him to be discovered. Even if a tame headmaster sensed it, he would only be able to sense a ball of yin energy. It was too shocking for yin specters to gain self-awareness. Even a yin lady like Di Yin only had one white tiger by her side. As for the puppet doll, it was an exception. Chen Bue felt his hands itching. If they weren't in the Chen family, he didn't want to disturb his father. He wanted to kill this man and woman at any time. Chapter 1705. Gu Shengyin looked at the puppet doll in surprise. How long had it been since it was created? It could actually speak human language. She was so happy that she quickly shouted, "Doll, come here." Chen Biue opened his green eyes and looked at the naked body and the warm water in the pool. He was thinking, should he go down? Or should he go down? However, just as he was thinking, Gu Shengyin finally remembered her current state. She couldn't bear her body in front of a self-aware doll, even if it was just a puppet. So she directly said, "Turn around, doll." When she said this, she had a commanding tone, like an adult talking to a naughty child. Then, under the effect of the contract, the puppet doll turned around without any resistance. Puppet Chen Biue doll. When his body was finally under his control, he found that the person opposite him had put on a bathrobe and walked out of the pool. Chen Biue looked at the person wrapped up tightly. In his lowered green eyes, there was a trace of regret. Gu Shengyin didn't notice. Of course, this was mostly because she didn't think that her little puppet doll could think of such complicated things. After resting and relaxing, it was time to get down to business. She sat on the bed and asked the puppet doll, "What did you see today?" If the puppet doll didn't have its own consciousness, Gu Shengyin would directly enter its consciousness and extract its memories. But now, Gu Shengyin thought that since the puppet doll had its own consciousness, it had become an independent individual. In this way, he could already be considered a special life form. Since it was a life form, it should be treated with enough respect. So, Gu Shengyin asked Chen Biue. Her action made Chen Biue sigh in relief. If she directly extracted the memories, the fact that he was Chen Biue's soul couldn't be hidden from Gu Shengyin. Although he didn't think what would happen if this was known by the person in front of him, after the awkward meeting in the pool just now, he still felt a little strange. And most importantly, if she directly extracted the memories, his shameful thoughts, Chen Biue put aside those distracting thoughts and slowly began to transmit everything he saw in the Chen family directly to Gu Shengyin's mind. Because it was his own choice, he omitted some things about his identity that Gu Shengyin didn't need to know. Gu Shengyin seemed to use the puppet doll's eyes to experience everything that Chen Biue saw in the whole night. In fact, Gu Shengyin herself knew most of the things happened. Based on the puppet doll's probing, she could roughly tell that this taming master was no match for her at all. In this case, she thought silently and couldn't help but mutter, "What kind of excuse should I find to try and wake up the eldest young master of the Chen family?" She didn't notice that the puppet doll was shocked when it heard this. She actually wanted to wake it up. There was nothing more surprising than this. Gu Shengyin felt that her arm was poked. She looked down in confusion and found that a memory in her mind was repeated. There were only 7 chapters today. I really couldn't write any more. There was a notice of leave at the top of the book review and comment section. I'll make up for it tomorrow. I'm really sorry. Chapter 1706. Gu Shengyin didn't understand. She looked through her memories. It was the scene of old man Chen politely accompanying a person from the Xian sect. At first, Gu Shengyin didn't understand what the doll meant. But after thinking for a bit, her eyes lit up. She looked at the doll. "You're saying that you want me to recommend myself? Take the initiative to go to them?" The doll nodded heavily. Chen Biue knew that his father wouldn't be willing to give up any chance at this time. In old man Chen's eyes, the only suitable successor was his eldest son, Chen Biue. This wasn't because he favored sons over daughters. He just understood his own children. His eldest son, Chen Biue, was first class in both ability and temperament. If he took over the Chen family, he might be able to push the Chen family to another peak. As for his daughter, Chen Qiqi, she was ruthless but lacked ability. Her vision was also a bit lacking. When Chen Biue fell, the most anxious person was old man Chen. He knew very well that the Chen family had countless branches. Some of the more ambitious ones were eyeing the current Chen family. He could still suppress them now. If he was 100 years old, his eldest son would be fine, but his youngest daughter Chi-Chi. He wouldn't be able to suppress those greedy people. So these days, old man Chen had been sparing no effort to find an expert, hoping to wake his eldest son up. Gu Shengyin lowered her head and thought for a bit. She felt that this was feasible. She smiled at the doll and praised it. "Doll, you're really amazing." The puppet doll just stared at Gu Shengyin with its green eyes. It flew over to her and perched on her shoulder, playing with her hair. Gu Shengyin didn't rest well the entire night. She was a bit tired and fell asleep as soon as her head hit the pillow. Chen puppet doll Baiyu sat on her pillow and looked down at the person who was sleeping with her eyes closed. She was still the same. Her face was pale and her lips were purplish. She looked like a decadent but beautiful poppy, luring humans to be attracted to her like moths to a flame. Chen Bue was the one who was seduced. He remained motionless, staring at the person on the bed over and over again as if he was possessed. It was as if he would never get tired of looking at her. After an unknown amount of time, Chen Bue suddenly bent down. His body was too small. Even though he was sitting on the pillow, there was still some distance between him and Gu Shengyin's face. He crawled forward with his hands and feet. After crawling a few times, he finally came into contact with the person sleeping on the pillow. Chen Bue gently grabbed Gu Shengyin's hair with his small hand. Finally, he kissed Gu Shengyin's face. It felt so good. He grinned contentedly. The system that didn't need to rest as well. His hands were itching, but he had to endure it. Fortunately, after kissing Gu Shengyin, Chen Bue didn't do anything else. His small body curled up in the side of Gu Shengyin's neck. He closed his eyes and pretended to fall asleep with her. When Gu Shengyin woke up, it was already afternoon. She stretched lazily and tidied herself up. Then, she walked straight to the Chen family's house. Of course, the white tiger and the puppet doll were still in her pocket. When old Master Chen heard that someone wanted to see him, he felt a bit strange. The housekeeper said, "That guest looks a bit strange." She said that she came for young master. Chapter 1707. Old Master Chen's expression changed when he heard this. He personally walked to the door with his walking stick. When Gu Shengyin was alone in the hotel with the puppet, she would subconsciously reveal a trace of her nature. However, in front of outsiders, she would definitely maintain her noble and cold persona to the point that not even a drop of water could leak out. Old Master Chen looked at Gu Shengyin. He had some doubts in his heart. After all, Gu Shengyin did not look like a good person. But who was he? No matter what he thought in his heart, he would not show it on his face. Moreover, old Master Chen had more contact with people like Gu Shengyin. He knew that some masters like to pursue some unique styles, so he quickly recovered. He said politely, "I heard that master is here for my son. May I know how to address you?" Gu Shengyin's expression was indifferent, like the ice and snow on the cold mountain that never melted all year round. Her voice was equally cold. "Dean, I can save your son." Chen Bue sat in Gu Shengyin's pocket. Although his eyes were covered by the pocket, he could clearly see Gu Shengyin's appearance at this time. He had never seen his master like this. It was hard to imagine that such an arrogant, indifferent, and insufferably arrogant person was the same person who would laugh and stretch in private. Old Master Chen politely welcomed them into the house and ordered someone to serve tea. He asked straightforwardly, "Master Dean, which faction do you belong to? Do you have any requests that I can make?" Asking about Gu Shengyin's faction was just a casual question. The last sentence was the main point. Old Master Chen, who had lived for so many years, was not a young and impetuous boy. Naturally, he would not believe that a pie would fall from the sky. In his opinion, the person in front of him must have a request for the Chen family since she took the initiative to come to him and said that she could save his son. He never believed that there would be a great philanthropist in the world who would give without asking for anything in return. However, It was obvious that Gu Shengyin was going to make him miscalculate. She still had that cold expression on her face, and the words that came out of her mouth carried a hint of mockery. "There's nothing in your house that I'm interested in. I'm willing to cure your son today because I'm happy." Old Master Chen. He didn't deny that he was a little unhappy when he heard the other party's first sentence. After all, the other party's words were simply criticizing the Chen clan as if they were worthless. However, when he heard Gu Shengyin's second sentence, he began to have doubts again. What kind of reason was that? He carefully raised his head and looked at Gu Shengyin, but he could not find any clues from her expression. He knew that some people in the celestial sect of wonders were eccentric. They spoke and did things according to their own preferences. Could it be that this person was also one of those people? Gu Shengyin felt old Master Chen's gaze and her voice suddenly became colder. Although her voice was cold, the bystanders could still tell that it was just her way of speaking. However, old Master Chen could hear that the other party was a little unhappy from the tone of her voice. "If it weren't for the fact that I don't like the person who did it behind my back, what do you think the Chen family has that's worth me doing it personally?" Gu Shengyin flicked her sleeves coldly and said, "Since you're worried about my purpose, why should I come here to annoy you?" Chapter 1708. As she spoke, she actually lifted her foot and walked out without hesitation. Old Master Chen was shocked. He couldn't care about anything else and hurriedly walked up. He stopped Gu Shengyin and even bent down to apologize for his previous behavior. "Master, it's my fault for neglecting you. Please don't be angry." Gu Shengyin looked at him with a faint smile and said, "I just feel hungry. You need to know something. For example, if I really want to do something to young Master Chen and the Chen family, I don't need to come here personally." Old Master Chen knew that he was still angry because of his suspicion. He hurriedly apologized. In fact, Gu Shengyin just wanted to protect the character setting of Di Yin. She didn't like to see an old man in his 50s grovel in front of her. So she softened her expression. "No need to apologize. Anyway, after this incident, we won't have any more interactions." Old Master Chen was delighted when he heard this. Judging from this master's words, she should agree to save his son. Chan Bue had been quietly staying in the pocket. He watched as his father bowed and apologized to a stranger for his sake. After all, that was his father. He blamed Gu Shengyin. Why was she so cold? But on second thought, Di Yin and Chan Bue were just two strangers who didn't know each other. Di Yin was willing to save him. No matter what the purpose was, it was a great favor for the Chen family. Moreover, it was obvious that she was like this outside. People with abilities always had privileges. When their abilities were questioned, it was normal for them to be unhappy. Chen Bue was still letting his imagination run wild. Gu Shengyin had already walked back into the living room of the Chen family. Gu Shengyin was not in the mood to make small talk. "Take me to see her." Old Master Chen personally led Gu Shengyin upstairs. At this time, the door below was opened. Chen Qiqi, who was wearing a black professional dress, came back from outside with a bag. She immediately spotted Gu Shengyin, who was walking beside her father. Chen Qiqi knew Di Yin. At that time, she personally asked Di Yin to help, but Di Yin rejected her. Now, why did she come to the Chen family? Could it be that he wanted to expose what he had done? Chen Qiqi shouted, "Dad!" Grandpa Chen turned around and smiled apologetically at Gu Shengyin. "That's my second daughter." Gu Shengyin did not say anything. Chen Qiqi rushed upstairs and looked at Gu Shengyin warily. However, she asked Old Master Chen, "Dad, who is this person?" Grandpa Chen said, "This is a master. He's here for your brother's health." Chen Qiqi's heart trembled. She had approached Di Yin because she had heard of his reputation. Father actually managed to get Dean to help? Could this person really be able to cure his brother? Moreover, she knew what she wanted to do at that time. Although Chen Qiqi did not say that he was targeting her brother, Chen Qiqi felt that he could definitely guess it based on Chen Bue's current situation. She could not let her father believe Di-in. Chen Qiqi glanced at Gu Shengyin and said to Grandpa Chen, "Father, do you know the background of these so-called masters? This person looks..." Grandpa Chen shouted in a low voice, "Shut up." Chapter 1709. Old Master Chen looked at Gu Shengyin nervously. He had seen the master's temper before. What if his daughter angered the master again with her words? But this time, Gu Shengyin made him confused again. Because she was not angry at all. Not only was she not angry, but she looked at Chen Qiqi with a meaningful smile on her face. This was the first time old Master Chen saw Master Di-in smile since he saw her today. But Chen Qiqi did not feel that the smile was friendly at all. Instead, she felt as if an endless chill was being released from that smile, corroding every inch of her body. She couldn't help but shudder. Then, Gu Shengyin said, "Are you in a hurry to stop me because you feel guilty?" As soon as she said this, the faces of the other two people present darkened. Chen Qiqi flew into a rage out of humiliation, while old Master Chen's expression was unreadable. Chen Qiqi was afraid that her father would doubt her because of Gu Shengyin's words, so she hurriedly explained, "Don't talk nonsense. Why would I feel guilty? I can't wait for my brother to get better as soon as possible. But you don't look like a decent master at all. In my opinion, you're clearly..." "Chen Qiqi!" Old Master Chen shouted sternly to stop her. Chen Qiqi quieted down. Old Master Chen said in a deep voice, "I'm going to ask the master to take a look at your brother. Go back to your room now. Don't make trouble without my permission." Chen Qiqi was a little unwilling. She said that she wanted to watch from the side. But before Gu Shengyin could say anything, old Master Chen refused. Chen Qiqi could only go back unwillingly. Gu Shengyin followed old Master Chen into Chen Bue's room. The room was very clean and there was no unpleasant atmosphere. Obviously, this young master was well taken care of at home. Gu Shengyin walked to Chen Bue's bed. Looking at his closed eyes, she suddenly bent down. Old Master Chen was shocked, and so was the puppet doll in Gu Shengyin's pocket. Because when Gu Shengyin leaned over, it really looked like she was going to kiss Chen Bue, who was lying on the bed. But Gu Shengyin did not. When she was still some distance away from Chen Bue's face, she stopped. There was no smell at all. "It's not him." Gu Shengyin straightened up and began to observe the person in front of him. Old Master Chen heaved a sigh of relief. He thought to himself that he must have been overthinking things just now. This master was clearly a cold and emotionless person. How could he have, discordant thoughts towards his own son? The puppet doll in Gu Shengyin's pocket was different. The moment he saw Gu Shengyin bending over, he almost jumped up in shock. Could it be that he and Diane knew each other, and there was some story that he had to tell before? Otherwise, it was hard to understand why she came all the way to the capital to save him. The puppet doll thought happily. But he really did not have any memory of knowing Diane. Moreover, he had never been to that valley, so it was impossible for him to know Diane. Seeing Gu Shengyin straightened up again without any expression and did not kiss him, the puppet doll felt a sense of regret. Then, he was once again shocked by Gu Shengyin's words. Gu Shengyin said faintly, "Take off his clothes." 4 chapters first. There are 7 more chapters today. I feel that this week has been terribly cold since Monday. It's getting colder day by day, really. Everyone who reads novels, please leave a footprint in the book review and comment section to encourage Gao Lengji. I'm a little confused. Is this story not good? Chapter 1710. There were only 2 people in the room. Gu Shengyin couldn't take off a man's clothes by herself. Of course, her words were directed at Old Master Chen. Old Master Chen didn't react for a moment. He looked at Gu Shengyin. Gu Shengyin repeated her words. "If it's not convenient for you, you can find an outsider to take it off." Old Master Chen was sure that Gu Shengyin was really going to take off his son's clothes. He thought about it and didn't let anyone in. Instead, he walked forward himself. Because he had been in bed for a long time, Chan Bue was wearing a set of convenient pajamas. It was easier to take them off. Old Master Chen took off his outerwear and looked hesitantly at Gu Shengyin, who was looking down. Gu Shengyin's voice didn't fluctuate at all. It was as if the person in front of her was just a stone or a blade of grass, not a naked man. Take it all off. Old Master Chen was silent for a moment. Then, he took off his eldest son's clothes. The puppet doll that had been lying in Gu Shengyin's pocket. An inexplicable sense of shame surged in his mind. This thought came too suddenly and was too strong. Chen Bue couldn't control himself and was caught by Gu Shengyin. Chen Bue's entire body froze. He was afraid that Gu Shengyin would be suspicious. However, Gu Shengyin didn't suspect him. She thought that the puppet doll had never seen a naked human body before, so it was embarrassed. She comforted the puppet doll. "Doll, don't be afraid. It's just a normal human body. Doll is like this too." Hearing Gu Shengyin's words, Chan Bue knew that she didn't suspect him. He sighed in relief. Then, the doll, who finally had time to think about other things, felt frustrated again. She didn't have any reaction to his body at all. Not to mention that she liked to be praised, she didn't even feel shy. Chen Bue felt like he had failed. Just as he was about to reflect on his lack of charm, he saw Gu Shengyin walk up to him, and then, Chan Bue's eyes widened. On the other side, Old Master Chen, who had been paying close attention to this side, also gasped. Gu Shengyin's hand started from the forehead of the person on the bed. Her index finger and middle finger slowly slid down. If it wasn't for Gu Shengyin's cold expression, as if she was just evaluating a lifeless object, her attitude would definitely be related to lust. Chen Bue felt like he was about to burn up. Although he wasn't in his own body right now, he felt as if his soul was being ignited by Gu Shengyin's actions. He could not help but look at Gu Shengyin. This glance made his burning mind sober up quite a bit. Because Gu Shengyin's expression didn't show any emotion. It was as if the adult male body in front of her was no different from a weed by the roadside. At this moment, her hand had already reached Chan Bue's heart. Then, her fingers paused. Gu Shengyin raised her eyebrows. Old Master Chen watched in horror. This master's fingers suddenly bent, and the purple-black long nails sank into his son's heart just like that. He didn't even have time to speak before he ran over. With such a sharp nail piercing into his chest, could his son still be saved? You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.